Incredible twist, Black CEO's seat taken, flight becomes grounded. Discover the amazing truth. Leah Williams stood in the bustling O'Hare International Airport, her heart racing in anticipation of landing an asset for her corporation that could launch it into unprecedented heights. She'd fought tooth and nail, risen among the sleek towers of Chicago's corporate scene, only to be often viewed as an afterthought compared to her male counterparts. The seat she specifically reserved on the flight to New York was a symbol of her achievement, a space where she could plot the future of her company, but as she approached the gate, dread crept in. The familiar figure of Jason Cole, her old rival, lounged comfortably in her seat. "Sorry, Leah. Guess you'll have to find another one," he smirked, relishing the moment. Glimpses of fury coursed through her. It was more than a seat, it was years of being undermined, invisible in a world that favored privilege and pedigree. Her chest tightened, and she hesitated. Did he do this intentionally? The thought lingered, wrapping itself around her like a noose. All the doubts she had suppressed bubbled to the surface, and fear gnawed at her. Would she always be overshadowed? Why did it always feel like she was pulling herself up from the depths of a pit with no light? As Leah waited to board, announcements of a safety protocol failure echoed ominously over the intercom, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. The flight was grounded indefinitely, and the tight knot in her stomach twisted at the notion this might not be mere happenstance. Could Jason have orchestrated this? Unease settled in her mind, an internal battle raged, the female CEO trying to chart her course in a male-dominated sea of distrust. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Leah's resolve hardened. She had to get to the bottom of this. She stepped away from the crowd, her mind spinning with possibilities while her heart hammered with both anger and urgency. The truth felt like a heavy boulder in her chest, but more than just the flight delay, it was the oppressive weight of long-standing biases that suffocated her spirit. In her darkest moments, she thought of her father, a wise man who taught her that integrity was her greatest asset. Would she let this moment slip away, as all the others had? She pulled out her phone, dialing her former mentor. "Emily, you won't believe what just happened." The words poured out like a boiling river, and as she detailed her grievances, she felt a flicker of strength igniting within her. But before Leah could navigate the labyrinth of corporate deception and claw back her rightful place, her phone buzzed with a notification a breach was reported at her corporation. Panic mixed with a newfound determination as Leah stared blankly at the screen. The stakes were rising, and time was running out. Would she become just another victim of a broken system, or would she rise to claim the power she was owed? The tension flipped as she prepared to confront Jason, her mind racing with a storm of possibilities. Leah's heart raced as she analyzed the beeping notification on her phone. A breach at her corporation could suggest corporate sabotage, something Jason would relish. It was time to act, not just for her company, but for herself. She was no longer willing to be the sidelines player in someone else's game. The turmoil inside her brain shifted gears from panic to a calculated resolve. She needed answers, and they lay with Jason. As she scanned the crowded airport terminal, Leah's instincts kicked in. She spotted Jason at the coffee shop, his thick smile visible even from a distance. How often had she allowed him to define her narrative? Chilled by the realization, Leah tightened her grip on her phone and approached him, head held high. "Jason," she said, her usually calm voice tinged with an edginess unfamiliar to her. "I need to speak with you." He turned, feigning surprise. "Leah. Fancy running into you here." His tone dripped with condescension. "Did you get lost looking for your seat?" "Cut the act," Leah snapped, the noise of the terminal fading to mere background hum. "What do you know about the breach at my company?" For a second, the facade dropped from Jason's face. He glanced around as if assessing his audience, then casually sipped his coffee. "I hear things, Leah. The industry is buzzing about your struggles. It's not just you, everyone knows. You really think anyone would go to such lengths to get at you?" His dismissiveness poked at the core of her anxiety. It was a familiar response, each word deliberately designed to undermine her. She contemplated her next move, trying to suppress the impulse to lash out. Instead, Leah took a breath. "You're wrong. People don't believe I can lead because you and others like you have made sure of it." Jason's expression morphed from surprise to intrigue. "Interesting angle," he replied coolly. "But I can't imagine what you hope to achieve. You're still the same Leah who gets distracted easily." A thought flickered through her mind. This was her moment not just to defend her company but to reclaim herself. "You're right. I've been distracted. But I've also learned. I've learned how to stand my ground, and I will find out what happened." As she turned to leave, Jason called after her, his voice a blend of mockery and curiosity. "And what if it leads to a dead end? You'll be the one looking foolish again." Leah paused, the weight of his words gnawing at her. In that moment, she could hear her father's voice, whispering about resilience. The fear she felt twisted into determination. "I'd rather look foolish than back down," she replied firmly, fully aware that her next actions could define her career. With purpose, Leah stepped away, her path carved with intention. She would dive into the breach incident, unearthing not only facts but also finding ways to strengthen her position in the industry. Yes, it was time to gather the pieces of her disrupted narrative and pivot the story back in her favor. As she settled in a quiet corner of the airport, her fingers danced across the keyboard, reaching out to her security team to piece together what had happened. But even as she strategized and built her plan, a shadow lingered in her mind. What if Jason had allies? The thrill of potential conflict bubbled within her as Leah sent out a message to her team. She had taken the first step, but ahead awaited greater challenges. What secrets connected Jason to the breach and what far-reaching implications would follow? Leah felt the tension in her gut rising again. This was only the beginning. She had to push herself harder, become not just a survivor of the system, but its conqueror. What lay ahead would demand everything she had. As she took a deep breath, reality sank in. This would not be just a fight for her company, it was a battle for her place in the industry and in her life. The moment of reckoning loomed closer. Would she unravel the truth before it consumed her, or would Jason's machinations overpower her resolve? The stakes were increasing, and Leah's next move could redefine her future entirely. Leah's heart thumped as she powered through the mental chaos brewing within her. She was on a precipice, where indecision had no place. With her phone still warm from her last message, she returned to the task at hand, diving deeper into the issue of the breach. Each keystroke felt like a lifeline pulling her back from uncertainty. As the terminal hummed with life around her, she was acutely aware of the contrast between the external frenzy and her intense internal focus. The first thing Leah needed was clarity. The breach itself had surfaced a lot of questions. How had it happened? Who had access? More importantly, how could she ensure she was the one holding the reins instead of becoming just another victim? This wasn't solely about the reputation of her company, it was fiercely personal, a chance to vanquish the self-doubt that haunted her for so long. Sifting through emails wouldn't cut it. Leah needed a strategy, one that could cut through the noise that Jason or his supporters had created. She knew she had brilliant team members, but she couldn't afford to show any signs of weakness. The respect she sought hinged on the foundation of her leadership. Leah began drafting a detailed plan. She would first gather discrete intel on her key competitors, pinpointing where they might have intersected with her company. Armed with facts, she could create a narrative that could leave even Jason humbled. As she worked, Leah felt an unexpected rush of confidence. It wasn't just the ambition rising, it was understanding who she was becoming. She recognized that she had deftly sidestepped in moments that called for strength. No more. She had the ability to cultivate her expertise, molding it into a force that couldn't be dismissed. The realization ignited something inside her. This would be her moment to redefine what it meant to be a leader in her industry. She resolved to leverage the breach as a catalyst for her advancement, not a setback. With focused intent, she engaged her team in a virtual meeting, her tone deliberate but inviting. Through their candid discussions, Leah encouraged them to share insights and perspectives, valuable information she could bind together. "I want us to think critically," she directed. "Where are the gaps? How can we build resilience beyond repair?" Moments turned into an hour as ideas flowed, and she noted how her team responded to her increasingly assertive presence. This was the turning point. Leah listened, absorbed, and reframed suggestions to constructions that could transform challenges into tangible solutions. She sensed fear dissipating as excitement took root. They were rallying, fueled not merely by the solving of a problem but by a shared vision of what could be accomplished together. Yet in the back of her mind, Jason's taunting voice echoed. She could see the shadows of his influence lingering, gnawing at her newfound clarity. Once the meeting adjourned, Leah couldn't shake an emerging concern: what if Jason had allies strategically positioned in the industry? Rising tension simmered under the surface, and she knew she had to act quickly. Leah's breaths quickened as she began combing through her professional network, seeking out connections that might have insight into Jason's dealings. Shadows of anxiety seeped in. The more she ventured into this realm of investigation, the more potential pitfalls emerged. Trust was rare, and unexpected loyalties could toss her off course entirely. Time was short, and decisions needed to be made. As she closed down her laptop and collected her belongings, Leah felt the pressure rise instead of recede. She knew the next move would require not just cunning, but an ability to confront Jason directly. Feeling exposed but intent on advancing, Leah muttered under her breath, "The time has come to face him." She needed to gather not only evidence but the strength to confront the very person who tried to undermine her. With Jason in her sights, Leah felt the thrill of what lay ahead. This was not just about her company anymore, it was about her very identity. The plane was preparing for departure, and so was Leah. Would she embrace that confrontation, or would fear clamp down harder than ever before? The tension in the air crackled, foreshadowing the inevitable clash. Leah sat in her cramped airplane seat, the familiar hum of engines a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. As she stared out the window at the clouds swelling like storm fronts, she felt the weight of the confrontation ahead bearing down on her shoulders. This was different from the strategic moves she had rehearsed. This was deeply personal. Her heart raced not just from anxiety, but from a dawning awareness of her own evolution. The woman who once cowered beneath the shadows of others was now preparing for a battle of wits and wills. With each tick of the clock, Leah recognized the pivotal moment growing closer. This was her chance to gain not merely ground in her professional sphere, but to reclaim her narrative, the story she had allowed others to dictate for too long. With her laptop still open despite the flight's impending takeoff, Leah rifled through a digital dossier she had compiled on Jason. His professional history, his connections, and the undercurrents of influence he wielded in their industry were laid bare in organized folders. The meticulous preparation had become an outlet for her fears, allowing her to shift from a passive role in her own story to a decisive player. Yet doubt crept in, latching onto the corners of her resolve. What if her research lacked the bite necessary to hold Jason accountable? What if he had already positioned himself in a way that made her evidence irrelevant? Just as her mind sank into speculation, Leah interrupted her thoughts. "No more hesitations," she murmured, anchoring herself to the mission ahead. This wasn't just about exposing his wrongdoings, it was about validating her right to lead. Gripping her phone tightly, she turned her focus inward. As her breathing steadied, Leah channeled the experiences and lessons she had accumulated, each setback a stepping stone, each moment of vulnerability a brushstroke on the canvas of her identity. In this daunting confrontation, she needed to harness all that she had learned, transforming past insecurities into tools of strength. The plane finally jolted into the air, lifting her into the realm of possibilities. Leah felt herself rising with it, leaving behind the weight of fear and doubt. She visualized her upcoming meeting with Jason, the steely look in his eyes, the smug curve of his mouth. This time, however, she wouldn't shrink away. This time, she would confront him with the evidence that could unravel his facade. Just as the flight leveled off, Leah's phone buzzed a message from a contact she'd reached out to earlier about Jason's connections. It was encrypted, cloaked in obfuscation, but the gist was clear: betrayal lurked closer to home than she had anticipated. Her heart sank with the realization. What if there were insiders planted to mislead her purpose? Fighting off the rising tide of panic, Leah took a deep breath. She refused to let the specter of betrayal overshadow her determination. This was her moment to carve out her own truth, and she would not falter. But she understood that the web of deception surrounding her was thicker than she had imagined, possibly ensnaring trusted colleagues as well. As the flight droned on, Leah mentally navigated the layers of her plan. Each step required integrity, not just in her quest for truth but also in how she confronted those who denied her strength. And most importantly, she would have to trust in her instincts, which were sharper than they had ever been. The turbulent journey ahead was riddled with uncertainties, but Leah was no longer just a participant in this story, she was its author. Would she be able to expose Jason while safeguarding her team? And as she pondered her next move, the question loomed larger than ever: who could she trust in this twisted game? The flight had taken off, but Leah's own ascent was just beginning. As the plane's engines droned on, Leah's mind raced faster than the cloud streaking past her window. Thoughts of Jason's duplicity loomed large, but there was something else clinging to her consciousness: the tightening grip of loyalty to her colleagues. Her open laptop was not just filled with evidence, it also contained memories of late-night brainstorming sessions, shared laughter, and the camaraderie that had defined their small team. This was about more than just her confrontation with Jason, it was about protecting everything she had built alongside them. Yet now, a dark cloud shimmered over these memories. The notion of betrayal weighed heavily on her mind. Privately, she dissected the cryptic message. Did someone within her circle succumb to Jason's influence? If so, how could she shield her team from the fallout? A surge of adrenaline coursed through Leah as she resolved to confront this challenge with the same meticulous preparation she had applied to her research on Jason. She began to visualize a strategy that would enable her to weave the facts together, creating an undeniable case. Yet, with each affirmation of her resolve, questions clouded her judgment. The struggle between personal loyalty and professional integrity forged a chasm in her mind. Could she trust her instincts when they were telling her two conflicting narratives? She had built this community with her team, but if betrayal ran deeper than she knew, could she risk everything to uphold it? As the flight continued its course toward the unknown, Leah reached into her bag and retrieved a notebook. She had learned the importance of tangible reflection in moments of pressure. Writing had always been a therapeutic outlet, a place where her fears and strategies coalesced. She began to sketch a plan, one that highlighted possible betrayals, those she could count on, and a timeline that might unveil Jason's motives. The pages filled quickly, and with each word, Leah felt a flicker of empowerment. She was identifying patterns, understanding who might align with Jason, and carving out ways to engage with them without raising suspicion. Could she approach her colleagues with her findings without instigating panic? The idea sent a jolt of fear through her. Each interaction would require delicate navigation as she balanced honesty with a need for caution. The flight attendants moved about with routine efficiency, serving drinks and snacks, reminders of normalcy juxtaposed against Leah's turbulent internal landscape. As she closed her notebook, a single realization crystallized: she had always acted on trust, but the consequences now demanded cautious navigation. Building trust required courage, yet revealing the potential for betrayal demanded an entirely different level of bravery. Amidst these revelations, Leah's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a cryptic video link from a new contact, someone formerly associated with Jason's team. Leah hesitated, a mixture of disbelief and intrigue sparking within her. Could this be the missing piece that altered her strategy? Without further hesitation, she opened the link. The video displayed unguarded moments from a corporate gathering. Jason, with his charismatic smile, appeared jovial in the background, while a series of interactions hinted at underlying tensions and alliances. Leah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized a familiar face emerging from the shadows, a trusted colleague, now clearly entangled in Jason's sphere. Suddenly, it became clear. The web of deceit intertwined not only Jason's ambitions but also those she had relied upon. Leah felt the ground beneath her shifting yet again. This was no longer a lone battle. The confrontation would necessitate a recalibrated approach, one where she not only revealed Jason but also addressed the vulnerability within her ranks. Determination hardened in Leah's chest. She would confront this dual betrayal head-on, armed not only with her findings about Jason but also with the reality of her colleagues' choices. As she formulated her next steps, she realized that every relationship was now under a meticulously scrutinized lens. With the next destination approaching, Leah knew she was on the precipice of a crucial turning point. The stakes had intensified, and the clarity of purpose solidified her resolve. But with fresh doubts looming in her mind, the question remained: how could she confront the betrayal while maintaining her team's integrity? As the assistant pilot announced their descent, Leah's heart thudded with urgency. This time, she would land in a situation where truth, loyalty, and trust would intertwine in ways she never anticipated. The moment of reckoning was at hand, and the path ahead was riddled with unexpected challenges. Would she be prepared to face her colleagues and Jason? Would they rise or fall together? The answers awaited at the other end of the flight. As the wheels of the plane began their final approach, Leah's heart raced, each thump echoing the turmoil in her mind. Was she ready to unearth the truth? The landscape below transformed into a patchwork quilt of suburban life, completely unaware of the storm brewing in her heart. A poignant moment struck her. For years, she had crafted a solid foundation built on trust, and now it felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Upon disembarking, she took a deep breath, soaking in the crisp air, a jolt that invigorated her senses. Leah's first instinct was to check her phone, hoping for any new insights from the cryptic video and unfamiliar contact. Instead, a weighty silence enveloped her. There was no further correspondence, which only deepened her resolve to face the uncertainty that lay ahead. Navigating through the airport, each step felt increasingly heavy. Suspicion mingled with loyalty. Was betrayal lurking around every corner? She thought of the trusted colleague she had seen in the video, someone who had always seemed steadfast, now plainly compromised. How could she reconcile the image of that person who sat next to her during brainstorming sessions with the possibility of treachery? Leah recalled their collective late nights of strategizing, the laughter, the moments of vulnerability. Trust had to be earned, and she realized now that it had been misplaced. Anxiety tightened its grip on her, yet she pushed forward, determination and purpose channeling her fear into clarity. She had to create a plan not just against Jason's machinations but also to safeguard the remaining integrity of her team. She drafted a schedule for the first day back at the office, ensuring that her meetings allowed her ample time to draw out the members of her team, probing gently for signs of any misalignment. Gleaning insights without inciting panic became a tightrope walk along which she would have to tread carefully. Leah considered how to broach the subject, weighing her words meticulously in her mind. Engaging in open discussions about the cryptic betrayal would not only require careful language but also an understanding of human behavior. It dawned on her that she needed to employ her skills in psychological analysis not just to outsmart Jason, but to read the pulse of her team. Recognizing who the real allies were and who might still be under Jason's influence was now her primary objective. Leah reached out to Marcus, her mentor and confidant, requesting an informal lunch meeting. His insights, built on years of navigating corporate complexities, would be invaluable. As she sat in the cafe, waiting for him, nerves coursed through her. She questioned if her plan would fracture her team further or unite them against the encroaching threat. When Marcus arrived, she laid out her concerns, showing him the video and sharing her suspicions about internal alliances. His brow furrowed with each discovery, mirroring her own escalating tension. "You're right to be cautious, Leah," he said. "But remember, identifying the issues is only the first step. Addressing them effectively requires leadership, a way to unite your team rather than divide." His words resonated deeply, awakening a profound realization in Leah: the most powerful weapon against betrayal could be transparency coupled with a unified front. But what would it take to navigate that treacherous path? As Leah exited the cafe, invigorated by Marcus's support, she felt like a soldier preparing for battle. A new plan began to form in her mind, one that combined accountability with open dialogue. Sowing seeds of trust anew would be vital, even in a landscape littered with doubt. Could she orchestrate a meeting where her colleagues could voice their fears, their ambitions, and potential loyalties? Returning to the office the next day, Leah's heartbeat quickened at the threshold. Would they rally together as a team, or would insecurities fracture their bonds? The stakes had never been higher, and she found herself at a crossroads. Years of collaboration now stood on the brink of testing the very foundation upon which they built their trust. The question loomed larger than ever: could she, Leah Simmons, the one who had driven unity, now find a way to mend the fractures left in betrayal's wake? The moment of truth beckoned, and she was about to confront the ultimate challenge, a reckoning that would define both her leadership and the fate of her team. Leah stepped into the office with impalpable tension, a sharp contrast to the usual buzz that filled the space. The usual morning greetings felt replaced by whispers and uneasy glances. She paused at her desk, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. Today was pivotal. The success of her plan hinged on her ability to foster an environment where vulnerability was met with support rather than suspicion. She summoned her team for a meeting later that morning. The conference room, often filled with laughter and collaboration, now loomed before her as a battleground. Each person, from the diligent interns to seasoned specialists, was a potential ally or a silent adversary. Leah knew she had to act swiftly. Inertia would only deepen the divisions. The meeting commenced. As she stood at the head of the table, Leah instinctively glanced towards the two chairs occupied by Sam and Jenna, the very colleagues she had shared countless projects and personal stories with. They had been the backbone of many successful campaigns, but the weight of her suspicions hung thick between them. Would they stand with her or distance themselves? "Thanks for coming," she began, striving for an air of calm. "I wanted to address something that's been on my mind. We've been through a lot together, and with recent events, I feel it's crucial for us to openly discuss our collective experience and align on our goals moving forward." The room was still, all eyes on her, but the silence felt heavy, charged. Leah pressed on, outlining the importance of transparency in fostering trust. "I can't pretend things are the same," she admitted, gauging their responses. "But I believe we can rebuild if we're honest with each other." As she opened the floor, the quietness shifted. Sam, clearly wrestling with his thoughts, broke through first. "I feel like something has changed, Leah. I know the dynamics are uneasy, and I'm struggling with it." His admission sent ripples through the group, nudging others to respond. Jenna's voice followed, shaky but firm. "We've all sensed it. It's like a shadow is hanging over us. But I want to believe in this team." Leah felt the tightening in her chest ease slightly. Their vulnerability sparked a revelation within her: she wasn't alone in this fight. A flicker of hope ignited as more voices joined in. "What if we use this moment to redefine our team values?" Sarah chimed in, her eyebrows arched with interest. "We should develop a code of conduct to guide us, ensuring everyone feels safe." She realized that harnessing the power of their shared uncertainty could shift the tide. They needed a framework, rules of engagement that would not just alleviate the present crisis but foster a long-term culture of inclusiveness and accountability. Gradually, they began to brainstorm, building a foundation of principles that would bind them together. Leah felt a renewed sense of purpose as the meeting progressed. She was no longer merely a soldier in a battle, but a leader forging an identity for her team. But beneath the surface, a darker realization gnawed at her: who among them truly supported this effort, and who might be planting seeds of discord? While this meeting fostered unity, Leah sensed that Jason's looming threat still permeated the space, his whispers echoing in the recesses of her mind. As the meeting concluded, Leah's heart was buoyed by the flickers of collaboration that had emerged. However, the lingering question remained: was this newfound trust sustainable, or merely a facade that would crumble under scrutiny? Walking out, Leah felt conflicted. She had taken a significant step towards rebuilding trust, yet the specter of potential betrayal still lurked, threatening to undermine their progress. Would the fragile connections they forged hold strong against Jason's machinations, or was it only a matter of time before the harsh truth unraveled everything she had started to mend? The uncertainty cast an imposing shadow as she caught sight of Jason loitering by the entrance, a smirk playing on his lips. The moment of reckoning was fast approaching. Could she navigate this minefield before it detonated? Leah knew she had to confront him, but what would that encounter reveal? Leah's heartbeat quickened as she approached Jason, the air between them thick with unspoken tension. He leaned casually against the wall, exuding an air of confidence that masked the reality of his true intentions. As she drew closer, words bubbled up in her throat, but a moment of hesitation gripped her. She remembered her recent meeting, a subtle victory where her team had begun to stitch together their collective trust. The seed of collaboration planted during that meeting blossomed, but Jason's presence threatened to strangle it before it could fully sprout. "Leah," he drawled, his tone laced with condescension, "nice gathering you had. Team building, was it? Good luck with that." His smirk ignited a flame of anger inside her, yet she willed herself to remain composed. "There's no need for sarcasm, Jason," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're committed to working through our issues as a team. I would hope you'd be supportive." His laughter echoed through the hallway, unsettling in its mockery. "Supportive? You mean naive? Teams fracture, Leah. It's a natural process. Your little meetings won't change anything without real power behind them." Her mind raced. Was he suggesting that teamwork was futile? But more importantly, why was he so adamantly trying to undermine her efforts? She needed to keep her emotions in check. A calculated approach was critical now. "And what about you? Aren't you part of this team, too?" "I'm part of the bigger picture," he replied dismissively, gesturing as if to wave away her concerns. "Your idealism is admirable, but you're forgetting that real success isn't about camaraderie. It's about who has the leverage." His arrogance only fueled her resolve. While Leah feared that Jason's influence could unravel her progress, she began to compose a different narrative in her mind, one that involved claiming her own power, rather than relinquishing it to him. She needed to strategize, to find a way to reveal his duplicity without alienating the remainder of her team. "Maybe it's time you gave the team a little credit. We're more resilient than you think," Leah shot back, her voice sharpening. "If you have something on your mind, let us talk about it openly. Or is hiding behind condescension your only tactic?" Jason's expression shifted, surprise momentarily flickered across his face. The implication of her words settled between them a challenge. The typical game of half-truths and insinuations gave way to a more profound reckoning. Was she truly prepared to confront him directly? She remembered Sarah's idea about developing a code of conduct. What if they incorporated Jason's behavior into that framework? If the team could unite in acknowledging not just their strengths but also the toxic elements present, perhaps it would expose him for what he was, an opportunist masked as a colleague. "I'll think about your advice, Leah, but remember," he added, stepping closer, invading her space. "People like me always win in the end." She stood her ground, her personal development coming sharply into focus. Leah realized that asserting herself, confronting challenges rather than shying away, was her greatest strength. Maybe we'll see about that. I'm not backing down. As Jason sauntered away, Leah felt a sense of empowerment replace her earlier uncertainty. This confrontation was merely a beginning, an escalation of the tension, but it ignited a determination within her to safeguard her vision for the team. The notion that success could indeed merge resilience with vulnerability gathered momentum in Leah's mind. As she returned to her desk, a plan began to gel. She envisioned a team meeting that could expose Jason's motives while simultaneously fortifying her allies. It would require careful orchestration, but the wheels were turning. Insecurities would likely surface in this next battleground, yet Leah fortified herself with the knowledge that navigating conflict would only sharpen their resolve. She had to ensure that the unexpected trust fostered in the earlier meeting transformed into collective strength. Little did she know, however, that Jason was already plotting his next move, one that would not only challenge her leadership but also force Leah to confront her most profound fears. The game was far from over, it was set to escalate. Yet as Leah plotted the course forward, she found a flicker of excitement pulse through her, a gateway to a newfound strength even she hadn't anticipated. Would she be prepared to embrace the consequences of her next actions? And how far was she willing to go to protect her growing network of trust? The answers to these questions loomed ominously ahead, tantalizing her with the promise of revelation and skill-testing confrontations. Leah sat at her desk, her fingers hovering hesitantly over the keyboard. The energy in her workspace felt different, charged with an undercurrent of tension, reflective of her tumultuous thoughts about Jason. As she began drafting the agenda for the upcoming team meeting, her mind raced through potential scenarios and tactics to counter his influence. This was a crucial turning point. She had to rally her colleagues while simultaneously shining a light on Jason's disingenuousness. She took a deep breath, recalling Sarah's insights about fostering vulnerability within the team. Leah understood that their shared experiences and fears could serve as a springboard for stronger bonds. However, navigating this fragile dynamic came with its risks. What if Jason retaliated, pivoting the team's unity against her? She couldn't allow fear of failure to cloud her judgment. Tactical execution required her to transform insecurities into actionable strategies. As Leah crafted the agenda, she resolved to include an anonymous feedback segment. Each team member would have a space to voice concerns about team dynamics without fear of retribution. Encouraging this level of openness could potentially lay bare Jason's manipulations. While it felt risky, Leah's desire to foster transparency outweighed her apprehensions. She was determined to manifest the change she envisioned, no matter how daunting the path. In the hours leading up to the meeting, Leah's anticipation morphed into steely determination. She sensed a shift in her approach. The lessons learned from her confrontations with Jason were crystallizing into something tangible. This wasn't just about addressing his behavior, it was about redefining her role as a leader and establishing a culture of accountability. Arriving at the conference room, Leah felt her heartbeat quicken, though it was now fueled by purpose rather than anxiety. The room buzzed as her colleagues filed in, their expressions a mixture of hope and skepticism. She caught Jason's eye and held his gaze, a silent confrontation that spoke volumes. The unspoken power struggle between them was alive, yet Leah felt a sense of reassurance swell within her. She started the meeting with an overview of their team's recent progress, intentionally highlighting moments of collaboration and trust. As she moved toward introducing the anonymous feedback mechanism, she could already sense Jason's discomfort, the shift in his posture as he prepared to challenge her. While we've made strides, I believe it's crucial we address the internal dynamics that could hinder our progress, Leah stated, her voice firm. To this end, I propose we implement an anonymous feedback process to identify areas of concern that need prompt attention. Mature approach, Leah, Jason interjected, sarcasm lacing his words. Letting everyone air their grievances without any real framework doesn't seem productive. You really think that will serve us well? Leah steadied herself against the pushback while amplifying her resolve. His dismissiveness only solidified her belief in the necessity of this initiative. "I believe in creating an environment where all voices can be heard. It's the only way to build true trust in our team." As conversations erupted around the table, Leah leaned in. Some colleagues nodded enthusiastically, while others appeared hesitant. She shared her vision for utilizing the feedback to cultivate personal growth, presenting it not merely as a critique but as an opportunity for everyone to become stronger versions of themselves. Yet, as the meeting progressed, Leah felt the energy shift. The subtle glances exchanged between Jason and a few others hinted at an alliance forming against her. Jason seemed to thrive on doubt, using it to solidify his hold over some members of her team. Leah knew the risks of taking such an open approach but refused to back down. She reminded herself that true leadership could withstand challenge, and sometimes it required trust in others to unveil their deeper capabilities. The discussion culminated in a tangible tension. Yet Leah caught rays of encouragement championing her initiative. She envisioned her colleagues using this feedback process as a tool for growth, a way to deepen their connections and challenge Jason's authority from within. Her heart raced, not with fear, but anticipation for what was to come. As she concluded the meeting, a sense of exhilaration filled her. For the first time, Leah could see the path ahead illuminated by her own resolve. Yet, as she walked away, she felt the weight of compassion wrestle with the reality of betrayal. Jason was not the only variable in this equation. She had inadvertently opened herself to vulnerabilities. Would her comrades stand by her or sway toward his deception? The chance to face the tumult within her team had come, but would they recognize their own potential in the face of adversity? Questions loomed in Leah's mind, propelling her forward yet tethering her to the possible fallout of her actions. The stakes had never been higher, and as she walked through the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that Jason's next move was just around the corner, poised to strike. In the coming days, Leah would confront not only Jason but also the roots of her own insecurities. Would she muster the courage to wield her newfound authority? Or would she falter in the face of his relentless schemes? The answers awaited, cloaked in tension and uncertainty. With the passing days, Leah fortified herself. Each time she arrived at the office, she felt her vision of leadership solidify. The initial fears that had paralyzed her began to dissipate as vibrant conversations flowed through the corridors. The implementation of the anonymous feedback mechanism had surprised her. It fostered a sense of community that many thought was lost. Yet her resolve was not solely based on that success. Beneath the surface, she understood the necessity of vigilance. As Jason continued to hover in the background, Leah prepared herself for an unavoidable confrontation. His mockery and dismissiveness had not waned, but now they served as fuel, igniting her determination to prevail over his influence. She reminisced about the moments she let self-doubt define her, and now she understood that only by confronting him directly could she reclaim the power to lead her team authentically. One morning, while reviewing feedback comments, Leah's phone buzzed with a message. It was a follow-up from Marcus, who had been diligently supportive throughout her journey. Meticulously, he addressed the nuances of leadership that Leah had been exploring. "Leah, staying aware of those around you is critical. Focus on fostering loyalty without letting it blind you to potential agendas. Your authenticity is your greatest asset." In that moment, the clarity washed over her. She knew she could no longer afford to tiptoe around Jason. He had held power by controlling perceptions, and Leah realized that transparency could dismantle that hold. It was time for her reckoning, a point where she would confront him not only with evidence of his consequences but also with the strength that had blossomed within her. "Jason," she called as she spotted him near the copy machine, his back facing her. Slowly, he turned, eyebrows raised, the faint smirk on his lips signaling amusement. "We need to talk." As he approached, Leah felt the butterflies erupt in her stomach. This was different. This time was not about his intimidation. It was her defiance taking shape. "I've seen the emails, and I know about the discussions you've been involved in regarding the breach. You've underestimated my resolve and the loyalty that exists within this team. His expression shifted from amusement to annoyance. You think you can muscle this through? Loyalty is fleeting, Leah. It won't shield you once the real players enter the field. But it's not just about loyalty, Jason, Leah countered, her voice calm yet fierce. It's about integrity, an aspect of leadership you lack. I've been sidelined by you for too long, and I acknowledge that I've allowed you to define me. But I want again. At that moment, something shifted both in her and the space around them. An invisible barrier had begun to crack. She could sense the gravity of her declaration, not merely for herself but for her entire team. Soon, we'll organize a round of discussions where everyone can openly share their insights about our culture. The truth will unite us, and whatever shadows you've created will be illuminated. He scoffed, but Leah was undeterred. This isn't a game for you to manipulate anymore. I want to foster genuine dialogue, something you match with mockery. Your tactics won't intimidate me any longer. Each word resonated with weight, an echo of her personal evolution into the woman she knew she was capable of being. As she walked away, Leah felt a swell of triumph course through her veins. The confrontation, once filled with trepidation, had redefined her narrative. She was no longer a pawn, she was a player strategizing her next move. That brief exchange with Jason solidified her identity, reinforcing her commitment to transparency and growth. In the days that followed, Leah united her team in their newfound vulnerability. They constructed protocols that promoted open dialogues, they instilled a stronger culture that made Jason's manipulative tactics brittle under scrutiny. The team, once marred by whispered alliances, now flourished, partially due to Leah's unyielding resolve. Recognition of their progress rippled through the office, culminating in a moment Leah cherished, each member silent yet attentive as she presented her reflections on their journey during the team meeting. We've carved our own path through chaos, she stated, voice steady. With trust as our cornerstone, we've built a resilience that no one can undermine. As applause followed her declaration, Leah recognized not only her growth but also the bonds she had forged among her colleagues. What had once been an isolating journey now evolved into a collective experience grounded in shared aspirations and victories. When external validation arrived in the form of accolades for their innovative team dynamics, Leah beamed with pride. She reveled in how the challenges had revealed her depth, resilience, and capability to lead with integrity and strength. Jason, on the other hand, faded into the background, a reminder of the adversities she had conquered. In this transformative journey, Leah emerged not just as a survivor but as a beacon of leadership that encapsulated both vulnerability and strength. Acknowledging her past strengthened her resolve, and converting challenges into stepping stones illustrated the metamorphosis that brought her to this moment confident, aware, and unprecedentedly empowered. As Leah prepared to confront her next ambition, she smiled. She was precisely where she was meant to be, an established leader, reborn from the shadows of doubt with unwavering clarity guiding her way forward. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and get this content to those who truly need it. Comment your reactions and theories about Leah's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters in showcasing stories of personal overcoming.